Most travelers visit Spain for Barcelona, Madrid, and the beaches. But beyond the city squares and tapas bars, there are villages hanging off cliffs, mountains hidden in constant mist, coastlines shaped by violent Atlantic waves, and volcanic islands that don't look European at all. Spain isn't one country. It's multiple worlds stitched together. And most visitors never see that side. They land in one Spain and leave without discovering the dozen others waiting just beyond the guidebook routes. What people think Spain is. When you picture Spain, you probably see sun, seafood, music, and crowded plazas. The image is vivid and consistent. Flamenco dancers in polka dot dresses, tables spilling onto cobblestone streets. The smell of paella cooking over open flames. Beaches lined with umbrellas stretching as far as the eye can see. And that virgin exists. It's real, and it's worth experiencing. But step away from the main routes, and the country changes quickly. Within an hour's drive from major cities, the landscape can shift from Mediterranean warmth to alpine cold. The architecture transforms from Gaudi's curves to austere stone fortresses. Even the food on your plate tells a different story. It resists simplicity. It refuses to be one thing. The north, Basque Country, and Asturias. In the north, Spain feels almost unrecognizable. If you've only known the Spain of endless sunshine and arid plains, arriving here feels like landing in a different country entirely. Green hills replace dry plains. Rain falls more often. The Atlantic crashes against steep cliffs. The light is softer here, filtered through clouds that roll in from the ocean without warning. Mist clings to valleys in the morning, and the air smells like salt and wet grass instead of dust and olive trees. In the Basque Country, towns sit quietly along dramatic coastlines. Places like San Juan de Gaztelugatxi look more like fantasy than reality. A stone church perched on a rocky island connected to the mainland by a narrow stone bridge that seems to defy logic. The path winds down and back up, and the waves below are relentless, carving away at the rocks year after year. The weather can change in minutes. Sunshine gives way to fog, then rain, then back to sun again. You learn to dress in layers and expect nothing to go exactly as planned. But that unpredictability is part of the appeal. Ronda and the Cliff Cities. In southern Spain, Ronda sits on top of a deep gorge. The town looks balanced on the edge. The gorge is called El Tajo, and it splits the city in two. Standing at the edge, you can look down over 300 feet to the river below. The walls of the canyon are sheer rock, weathered and layered with centuries of erosion. Bridges connect cliffs that seem too far apart. The most famous is the Puente Nuevo, the new bridge, though it was built in the 1700s. It rises from the gorge floor in a single graceful arch, connecting the old Moorish quarter with the newer parts of town. From a distance, it looks impossibly thin, like it shouldn't be able to hold its own weight, let alone the traffic that crosses it daily. From below, the scale feels impossible. Ronda is the latter. It feels like a challenge to gravity, to common sense, to the idea that people should build in safer, flatter places. The Canary Islands, Spain in the Atlantic. Then there are the Canary Islands, closer to Africa than mainland Europe. Geographically, these islands sit off the coast of Morocco. Culturally, they belong to Spain. But visually, they feel like neither. Volcanic landscapes stretch across Lanzarote. Black sand beaches replace golden ones. The terrain is stark and surreal. Fields of hardened lava stretch for miles, frozen mid-flow from eruptions centuries ago. In some places, the ground is still warm beneath your feet. Plants grow in strange, stubborn patterns, adapted to soil that offers almost nothing. And that distance is part of the appeal. The Canary Islands offer escape not just from mainland Europe, but from mainland expectations. Most visitors leave Spain thinking they've seen it. But the deeper you explore, the more it changes. Spain doesn't reveal itself quickly. It rewards patience, curiosity, and a willingness to stray from the well-trodden paths. If you're drawn to destinations beyond the obvious, this channel is built for that. Andalusia's white villages. In Andalusia, white villages climb hills under wide skies. These pueblos blancos dot the landscape across the southern provinces. From a distance, they look like clusters of sugar cubes scattered across green and brown hillsides. Walls are painted bright to reflect the heat. Streets are narrow, designed before cars. Midday feels almost silent. These villages aren't tourist attractions, though tourists do visit. They're living communities with histories that stretch back to Moorish rule and beyond. The streets wind and double back on themselves, designed to confuse invaders and create natural fortifications. Toledo in Spain's layered history. In central Spain, Toledo rises above the Tagus River. The city sits on a hill, surrounded on three sides by the river, creating a natural moat that made it nearly impossible to conquer. For centuries, it was one of the most important cities in Spain. A royal capital, a religious center, a crossroads of cultures. Christian, Muslim, and Jewish influences overlap here. Toledo was known as the city of three cultures during the Middle Ages, when scholars, merchants, and artisans from all three faiths lived and worked side by side. That legacy is still visible in the architecture, the street names, the hidden synagogues and mosques that have been preserved or converted over the centuries. Architecture shifts within a few streets. Toledo is one of them. Walking its streets feels like flipping through a history book where every page is still present, still legible. Food beyond paella. Spanish cuisine changes by region. Paella might be the most famous dish, but it's just one expression of a food culture that varies dramatically depending on where you are in the country. In the north, pinzos are served on small plates, precise and simple. In Galicia, seafood arrives fresh from the Atlantic. It's not fusion, it's not trendy, it's traditional in the best sense, rooted in place, shaped by climate and history, passed down through families who've been making the same dishes for centuries. Why travelers are looking beyond Barcelona. Spain remains one of Europe's most visited countries. Every year, millions of tourists arrive in Madrid and Barcelona. They visit the Prado, walk La Rambla, see the Sagrada Familia, and those experiences are worthwhile. But they're also increasingly crowded, expensive, and predictable. But more travelers are moving beyond the obvious. They're renting apartments for a week instead of hotels for a night. They're cooking with ingredients from local markets. They're taking language classes, attending neighborhood festivals, getting to know the rhythms of daily life. Who this side of Spain is for. This side of Spain is for travelers who want contrast. For people who get restless when everything looks and feels the same. Who want their surroundings to shift and surprise them. Who appreciate that a single country can contain deserts and rainforests, beaches, and snow-capped peaks. For people who don't mind driving further. Who see the journey as part of the experience. Who are willing to rent a car, navigate winding mountain roads, follow hand-painted signs to villages that barely appear on maps. Spain isn't just beaches and city squares. It's cliffs, volcanoes, mist-covered mountains, and towns balanced on impossible edges. It's the smell of salt spray on a northern coast and the silence of a whitewashed village at midday. It's the shock of seeing a volcano rising from the Atlantic and the wonder of crossing a bridge over a 300-foot gorge. And once you move beyond the obvious stops, you realize how much more there is. Spain rewards curiosity. It rewards travelers who ask questions, take detours, and trust that the best moments often come unplanned. This isn't the Spain of brochures and travel cliches. This is the Spain that changes you. Subscribe for more journeys beyond the tourist version. What part of Spain would you explore first?